everyone. Good morning. Good. Here we are. Another executive leadership breakfast. And welcome everyone to this, our second executive leadership breakfast for the season. And I'd just like to say how delighted I am to see so many of you here this morning. I want to bring greetings on behalf of our 8,000 students, our almost 200 full-time faculty, our 300 or so very dedicated adjuncts, and our many administrators who really help to make this place the very, very special higher education institution that it is. So greetings to you all on behalf of the whole York College community. I'm honored to extend a very special York welcome to the Honorable Peter Rivera, Commissioner for the New York State Department of Labor. Commissioner Rivera is our keynoter this morning, and it will be our students' duty to do the formal introduction, and she will come up in a while to do that. But I did want to insert my own very warm welcome to you, and indeed the warm welcome of all of CUNY, because Peter Rivera is a dear friend of CUNY, and our Vice Chancellor, Jay Hershenson, wanted me to publicly thank you for a recent important development that you helped to make happen. So in behalf of all of CUNY, and especially in behalf of the Chancellor and the Vice Chancellor, a special welcome and a special thanks to all you do for community colleges, as well as for the broad swath of higher education in your role as Commissioner of Labor. So thank you so much. So many of you who've been here before at these breakfasts sort of know the genesis, how it started. It was back in 2005, and we at York were looking for a way to really sort of reconnect with our external community. And this idea of the Executive Leadership Breakfast, sort of modeling the Crane breakfast that happens in Manhattan, was brought to us as an idea. And we said, why not try it? So it's been just about 7 years now that we've been doing it. It provides a platform for opinion makers to put on the table ideas, and for our audience here at York, both internal and external, to have a chance to exchange. So, Commissioner, you follow in the footsteps of some important opinion makers, starting with our own Congressman Greg Meeks, City Council Speaker Christine Quinn, JetBlue founder David Nealman, Deputy Mayor Dan Doctoroff, Comptrollers William Thompson and Tom DiNapoli, and a slew of others, a cohort of other important people. Most recently, a very provocative and interesting presentation by Applebee's CEO, Zane Tankel. So your presence here is timely, for it comes also at a time when CUNY is really positioning itself to be more responsive to the labor market. And just recently, and this is for the audience, because Commissioner, I know you've seen this little blue book a number of times already. But the university, CUNY, created this Jobs for New York's Future, a report of the City University of New York Jobs Task Force 2012, in which it takes a very deep dive into where the jobs are, the niches that are being developed, and where we, CUNY, as an organization, we need to plow the fields in order to meet the market needs that the CEOs are telling us they need. So I would encourage the audience here to peruse the CUNY website, to take a look at that. But it is in this context, I believe, that we thought it would be good to have our commissioner here with us. I want to acknowledge many of our long-standing friends. I, of course, want to say a special welcome to our students first, and to our phenomenal faculty who are in the house. I want to, of course, acknowledge our alums who are here, and to say how good it is to see you, and also to say how much we appreciate the work you did during the time that we served as a shelter for so many, almost 800 evacuees and guests who were displaced from their homes. And you came in and you provided clothing, you provided food, you provided services for children, you entertained the young people, did a little Halloween costume party, you provided music, you did some reading. So we really want to say how much we appreciate that, our alums, that you joined with us, and you led, really. You sort of pointed the way for us, and we followed. And that's good, because sometimes we've got to be good followers. So alums are very, very special. Thank you for that. Quickly, if I might acknowledge some of our long-standing friends. Our Councilman Leroy Comrie is here. Is State Senator Peralta in the House? I think he intends to come. Our foundation board members, of course, are here. Is Bishop Norris here? Maybe not now, but he will probably come later. Greater Jamaica, I know I saw Carlisle. Thank you for coming out, Carlisle. Miss Doris Houston. Community Board 12, Yvonne Reddick is here, I know. Of course, our councilman, former council member Archie Spinger is here. Thank you so much for being here. District Leader Jackie Boyce. Of course, I've mentioned our students. I want to also acknowledge the support we've gotten for this particular year from JetBlue. Isema Gibbs in particular. I know Isema isn't here today. She's probably carrying on some other duties. But JetBlue has been a long-standing friend of ours, supported our students in aviation, and support this particular series of breakfasts. So I want to acknowledge them. And as I complete my acknowledgments, they would not be complete without thanking, can't really thank Assemblywoman Vivian Cook enough, quite frankly. But whenever I get a chance to thank her publicly, I do that. But I also thank her privately, and she knows that. And we spent some good times in Albany, especially with our social work students who go up to advocate. But this lady has been a stalwart supporter, leader for York, in behalf of York, certainly a personal supporter of mine during the time that I have spent at York. And without her, quite frankly, some of our big dreams wouldn't be coming true, like the big dream we're dreaming of that 160,000 square foot academic village building, which is going to be across the street there. So, of course, you know what that means. Assemblywoman, that we're coming again to ask for some more money. But I know you understand. I am very clear. Yes. Good. So thank you all. Thank you all. We have a couple of new friends that I just want to acknowledge. We have a visitor from NYU, Cal Poly, who is here today, Mr. McLaughlin. It's so good of you to come. Maybe there is something we can do. A couple of other visitors from the venture capital arena, Manny Emmanuel Martinez and James Grundvig. Did I get that right? Yes, I did. Good. Thanks a lot for coming. What would a college president who didn't ask for a little more money be worth her salt if she didn't at this time say just a little promo and a little, first of all, take a look at the CUNY value, not now, but after the, on the way home, on the subway. This is one of our new pieces, the York value. And we believe that we have been well supported by our city and our state. But certainly, as you know, tax levy funding does not always keep pace with what we want to do. And we also want to do some of the bonus things for our students, give them that extra step up, undergraduate research, travel abroad, and so on. And so as we come to the end of the tax year, if you think that you can give, there's a little flyer in here. We would be more than delighted to accept small gifts to our foundation on behalf of our very worthy students. So that is the only pitch I will make with regard to giving. And I know that there are many competing interests at this time. We just have to reflect at a month ago when people at this very institution, some of our students, our fellow New Yorkers, have been so deeply hit by the ravages of Hurricane Sandy. So I also appeal to you, as I appeal to you in behalf of York, to support those organizations and those charities which are doing the phenomenal work to help individuals restore their lives. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, let us turn to Miss Althea Gordon, a business major here at York. Please come forward. She has the delightful duty of formally introducing our guest speaker.
Good morning, everyone. I am Althea Gordon, a business administration major with a focus on human resource management, and I will be completing my undergraduate degree this month at York. Yeah. I am very honored to have been asked to introduce our keynote speaker this morning, the Honorable Peter M. Rivera, who, as you know by now, is Commissioner of the New York State Department of Labor. He is charged with connecting job seekers with employers and protecting workers. Mr. Rivera was born in Ponce, Puerto Rico, and migrated with his family to the United States as a small child. He earned his undergraduate degree in business administration from Pace College and a Juris Doctor from St. John's University. He has enjoyed a varied and fascinating professional life, starting as a Bronx police officer and worked his way up to Assistant District Attorney, Homicide Bureau in that borough after completing his law degree, and in 1992, he won a seat in the New York State Assembly representing parts of the Bronx. In that role, Mr. Rivera distinguished himself as a member of the governor's Minority and Women-Owned Business Enterprise Review Team, chairman of the Assembly Standing Committee on Mental Health, Mental Retardation, and Developmental Disabilities, and chairman of the Assembly Puerto Rican Hispanic Task Forces. He was also the highest-ranking Latino elected official in the Assembly. Ladies and gentlemen, you may read the rest of his impressive resume in your programs, but in the meantime, please join me in welcoming to the podium Commissioner Peter M. Rivera.
Thank you for that very kind introduction. It was mentioned that I came from the New York State Assembly, and I want to give you a little vignette about when I became a member of the State Assembly. and what my wishes were as a newly elected member. I was elected 20 years ago, by the way, about this time. And when I spoke to the speaker about what committees I wanted to sit on, I looked at where my colleagues of color were serving and what committees they sat on. And they sat on a lot of social service committees and in the social service area. I wanted to be a little different. I wanted to see what business opportunities were going to be out there for a legislator of color and try to focus my attention and my career in the legislature on, in the business arena. So I asked the speaker to sit on committees like insurance, banking, and a whole bunch of other committees that were business focused, thinking that this was the future of our communities and this is where we should go. Let me leave that aside for a minute and talk to you about the Department of Labor. The Department of Labor of the state of New York is not an old Department of Labor. It has been around for about 100 years. And the history of the Department of Labor is its root was in the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, which is a very famous fire that occurred in New York State about 100 years ago, where about over 100 people were killed. And the reason why they were killed was because there were no doors for them to be able to escape. In fact, the windows were boarded up and covered, and there was only one door for people to come in and to come out. Now, if you recall what happened about a month ago, in Bangladesh, the same thing happened. Recently, about a month ago, over 100 people in Bangladesh perished at a factory, and it was the same problem. In fact, in the last 6 months, over 500 people in Southeast Asia have perished in factory fires living in the same conditions. Well, in New York State, as a result of this fire, they formed the Department of Labor. And the initial purpose of the Department of Labor is we were New York's police officers when it came to the labor standards and labor rules. The legislature created all kinds of rules and regulations about hourly work, overtime work, working conditions, and so on and so on. And it was the Department of Labor who administered and focused in this area. And for years, for close to 100 years, whenever you said that you were the commissioner of the Department of Labor, you got two results. When you spoke to employees, the employees said, "Yay, thank you for fighting for our rights and for our benefits." And when you spoke to employers, you got boos, because we were the people who went to your place, who checked you out, who inspected you, and who fined you if we saw anything wrong. So we were faced with this dichotomy in our culture and in our society, where we were praised by one group and damned by another group. Let me bring you to where we are today. The world has changed. We still have very serious labor regulation issues that we have to oversee. However, that being said, we have to figure out what do we do with our populations as they're coming out of colleges, as they're coming into New York, as they're growing up in New York with all kinds of educational issues that have to be addressed. The final part of your developments as students is one thing. I hate to say this to your president, is to get a job, right? That's why we go to school. I know it's for more, but as the Commissioner of Labor, let me live in this dream. Yeah. Your goal is to get a job. And my job, my goal, is to make sure that you get the best job available to you, that you live up to your dreams, that you lead the next 30 or 40 years in a challenging environment that pushes you, that satisfies you, and that brings you to true fruition of what this country is all about. And the question is, how do we do that? It's a very, very complex problem, because we start off with our education system, and that's one of the things that I'm looking at. We start off with the fact that so many young people in New York State are dropping out of school, forgetting about the education that they're getting in the primary education. So many young people eventually do drop out and do not finish. We start off with the fact that the labor market has changed, that the opportunities for jobs are not the same jobs that your parents had, the same opportunities that your parents had, that everything is changing on a regular basis. You hear about everybody going and learning Chinese, going to the Asian markets, going to the Indian markets. So the question is, how does the state of New York satisfies your need, keeps you here? We don't want you moving to Florida. We don't want you moving to Georgia. We don't want you moving out west. We want to keep you here, and we don't want you leaving not only New York City, we don't want you leaving Buffalo, we don't want you leaving Rochester, we don't want you leaving the communities that you feel so comfortable around. And that's the job that I'm surrounded with. As you can see, to bring it full circle, I got what I wanted. I may not have gotten the committees of insurance and banking, but I got business. I got the ability to connect you to the business opportunities that are out there. And the Department of Labor is moving slowly, because if you know anything about government, you know that government moves very, very, very slowly. But we're moving to redefine ourselves. And let me give you an example. The President of the United States has said that the future of our employment markets is in our college systems, in our community colleges in particular. And that's something that I strongly believe in, and that's something that we can work at and that we can strengthen. I'm working with the CUNY system, with the chancellor and the vice chancellor, first to identify money. Recently, in the last 3 or 4 months, we've been able to identify close to $100 million in various contracts that are going to the CUNY system for one reason and one reason only: to prepare you guys for the future, to prepare you guys for a business environment, for a work environment that's going to be very, very, very challenging. And the question is, how do we do that, and where do we do that? I'll give you a perfect example of something of the way sometimes government works, but doesn't work in connection with what you guys should be expecting and what you need. As Vivian will tell you, she was a former colleague of mine. The New York State Assembly spent years and years debating and arguing preschool education for youngsters. And we would put in, as Vivian would tell you, hundreds of millions of dollars into the budget for pre-K, to educate our youngsters into pre-K. One thing we never, ever did was debate, how do we get the people, the young people, to be able to go into pre-K, the jobs that would be there, the jobs that would be waiting, and what we should be doing to prepare our colleges for a tremendous pre-K opportunity as we were debating that. Right now, we have a green technology that's growing up right now. The question we have to ask ourselves is, what role will our colleges play in the green technology opportunities that New York State is going to have? And how do we prepare you for green technology? How do we prepare you for this growth in these new businesses that are going to be coming up there? And that's what I'm focusing on right now. And as I'm focusing on you, the students, the college student, we also have a huge population out there of young men and young women who time has passed them by a little bit and may not have the same opportunities that you've had and may not be as focused in the future as you guys are. I'm talking about those individuals that had dropped out. I'm talking about those individuals in our prison systems. I'm talking about those individuals of color who suffer this feeling that this society is not really part of their society. And the Department of Labor, DOL, is developing doesn't have programs, but is developing programs for these communities. We have a program to deal with the prison population, with young men and young women getting out of prison. We've been able to train about 850 into apprenticeship programs. Now, that's an interesting word. What is an apprentice? Apprenticeship programs basically deals with the labor market and the union market, and deals with constructions and a whole bunch of other industries, and tries to prepare young men and women to go into those kinds of jobs and those kinds of opportunities. So we've prepared about 850 young individuals to be able to enter the apprenticeship. We've made them apprentice. What happens when you become an apprentice is you get a certificate that you are an apprentice, and you could join a labor union and go into a certain type of field. As I said, we've prepared about 850 individuals. We have a Youth Works program. This is for the young men and women, the ages of 18 to 25, who dropped out, who are long-term unemployed, who have a difficult time in being able to see a way out of a spiral and a circle that they don't feel a part of. We've been able to start this program, the Youth Works, recently. I'm talking about the last 6 months. So far, we have found 12,000 young men and women of color jobs in the New York State labor market. So I think that's a tremendous success to be able to do that in 6 months. Tremendously successful. When you look at Hurricane Sandy, we saw that as a terrible disaster. But as a labor commissioner, I saw it as an opportunity to be able to rebuild our city, particularly those parts of the city that were so devastated by the hurricane. So we got some federal grants called NEG grants, the National Emergency Grants, that basically allows us to hire. We got $30,000 with an additional $28,000 coming soon. Our goal is to be able to hire 5,000 young men and women to be able to rebuild their local communities. Now, these are temporary jobs. The maximum that you can be in an NEG grant is 6 months. The maximum you get paid is up to $15 an hour. But for young men and women who are unemployed, it's a tremendous chance to be able to prove themselves and show their talent and their abilities. Let me give you what happened with our NEG grant. So far, we have over 1,000 people that we've been able to hire with a goal of 5,000. But you know how many people applied? We had 30,000 people apply for the work under the NEG grant, which breaks my heart. These are young men and women in communities of color. Gives you and don't forget, Hurricane Sandy was a month ago. And these individuals, these 30,000 individuals applied for a job within the last couple of weeks to be able to work. It gives you the kind of idea of where we are as a community and what some of the problems are in our community. We're not going to be able to satisfy all these 30,000 individuals. I've made sure that we contact each and every one of these individuals, send them a card, thank them for their effort, and try to place them in one of the other programs that we have, in the Youth Works programs or whatever other programs that we have, so that they're not forgotten, so that their sincere effort to join us and to find work doesn't go the way of the dinosaur. What quite often happens when you're in government is you reach out to people, you touch people, and people respond. And if you don't get back to these individuals, they forget that they feel that you have rejected them. They feel that you are ignoring them. So what I've told my staff is to make sure that each and every one of these individuals gets a note from us, gets the opportunity to keep their hopes and their aspirations alive, and is not forgotten, that we try to place some of these individuals in some of the other programs that we do have, which is, as I was saying, I find it so important to be able to do. I have a staff of about 5,000 people throughout the state of New York. They're in a whole bunch of different areas. When it comes to people who are unemployed and are collecting unemployment checks. My staff is the one that pays the unemployment checks. Last year, we gave out close to $9 billion in unemployment checks. So you can imagine, it's a tremendous task just keeping tabs of the unemployment checks that we send out. And as I indicated before, we also are responsible for so many of the other issues like OSHA and other rights that individuals have. But the area that I really see moving forward where we can have tremendous hope and tremendous success is when it comes to communities of color and trying to tailor programs to communities of color where the unemployment rate is so massive and so devastating. So we are starting initiatives in the African American community. We are starting initiatives in the Hispanic community and in whatever other community we are able to identify. The Department of Labor, better yet, government, was always famous for coming in there, doing a press conference, and then the press conference fading and the effort fading. I don't want to see that happen with the Department of Labor. We are setting up committees to be able to stay on top of some of these issues, to be able to revisit these issues, and to make sure that the people that we are impacting, the people that we are affecting, the programs that we are starting are long-lasting. And with that being said, I really have to close with one idea. One of the areas that we're concerned about is with the New York State labor force, people who work for the state of New York, and the fact, and I'm addressing this to this side of the, and I know that they're spread all over, but, and that is that New York State has a tremendous opportunity to give you a great job in many, many parts of the state. And we will be issuing exams to civil service exams that you should consider taking. And there are many, many different ways, and we'll be preparing you. One of the things that some of the older people here will remember, when we were younger, when I was younger, I was a cop many, many years ago. The way I became a cop, there was an organization called the Delahanty Institute. The Delahanty Institute gave you classes on how to take an exam. That basically, for the most part, I know that the colleges do that, but that for the most part has gone the way of the dinosaur. To find programs out there that prepare young people to take civil service exams, I want to reinstitute that to make sure that at least when it comes to civil service exam, we're all prepared. With that, I want to thank your president for this tremendous opportunity, and Godspeed. Are there questions?
Yes, of course.
There's a question back there.
And, well,
Oh, I'm sorry.
First, is there a mic? Yes. Good, great, good, absolutely.
Good morning, Commissioner. My name is Ajwa Gifa, and I actually work at LaGuardia Community College, but I'm an alum of this institution. And my question is about the Youth Works program. We at LaGuardia have a Youth Works program, and I'd like to know if there's any chance of extending that program past June, because as you know, the program is supposed to end in June, and we don't really have enough money to run the program, to do all the things that the Department of Labor has asked us to do. Every individual who comes through that program is supposed to be in an occupational skills training program. And they are also supposed to take that National Work Readiness credential. So is there any way of extending the program past June so that we can meet our numbers?
Good question. The reason why I say it's a good question is, let me give you 30 seconds of Youth Works. Youth Works programs was established about 6 months ago, and the goal was to place 5,000 youngsters. I call everybody youngster, you know. So 5,000 young people, find jobs for 5,000 young people. As I indicated earlier, we exceeded our expectation. We'd found jobs for 12,000 young people. So, I mean, you know, not only did we succeed, we did a very, very good job in our success. And we're working on Youth Works 2. It's like a movie, you know, there was Youth Works, now there's Youth Works 2. So we are working on Youth Works 2. It's not done yet, because it's a question of money. It's a question of what happens with Youth Works is employers get a tax credit. And whenever you talk about tax credit, you're talking about money. So there is a dollar attached to it, but we are working and we are discussing right now YouthWorks 2. And you're absolutely correct. The program will expire soon. It's just a question of how do we expand on it. And you can see, because of the tremendous success that we had, not only should we have New York Works 2, but we should be talking about 3, 4, and 5 as we go along with it. Good morning.
I'm just curious to know that you mentioned earlier that you had received about 1,000 applications for the people who were looking for jobs.
No, we received 30,000.
30,000.
We found jobs for about 1,000.
Right, but you've only been able to secure 1,000 so
well,
far.
we have money for 5,000 jobs.
Let me see if I understand this correctly. You have 30,000 jobs so far.
Right.
Only 1,000 so far
Right.
at this present moment. 30,000 applicants. Okay, so I'm just trying to find out. Governor Cuomo had stated that this money was located, I believe, 5,000 employees. And what I'm just trying to find out, do you have any idea right now how many people in this community can possibly secure jobs?
Good question. Let me answer your question. The way the NEG grants works is we give the money to the localities. So New York City, we got $28,700. I call it 30,000 because I like to round things out. So, you know, if I said 30,000, you'll know that it's 27,800. But I'm sorry, million. Please. Close. $27.8 million we got from the federal government, and we're going to get another $22 million from the federal government for the NEG grant. Now, what we do with that money is we give it to the localities. We gave New York City initially, $7 million for them to hire. And we asked the following: identify the work sites that have to come. And we asked this not of the city, but we asked this of community groups. So wherever I go, and I've gone to every single county in the city of New York, as well as counties outside the city of New York, and I say, identify work sites, and we'll give you the money, locality, you know, whether it's the county of Nassau or the city of Long Beach or whatever, so that you can hire individuals to be able to clean, from the local community, to clean up your city. I don't want to blame anybody, but that's one of the hardest parts to do, to get the localities to be able to come back and say, give me 10 slots, give me 50 slots, give me 100 slots. The place where it has succeeded the most happens to be New York City, where I said we hired close to 1,000 people. The bulk of that came from where New York City hires. If you were to go outside the city of New York, it becomes almost impossible to get a locality, and I'll share a story with you in a minute, to hire people. So what we're looking at right now is we should be hiring them. We're trying to get the authority to hire, New York State to hire these individuals to do local cleanups. As you can imagine, it's easier to get the locality to hire these individuals to do the local cleanup, but it doesn't always work that way. And as an aside, this will stay here, right? We can keep secrets here. As I indicated to you, New York State has hired 1,000 people. How many do you think New Jersey has hired? I'm going to have one person answer that question. I'm going to have you answer it. How many? 3 people. 3 individuals were hired by New Jersey according to their NEG grant. So even though we're terrible, we're still 997 people above New Jersey. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I just tried to give you.
One quick question. Can you possibly have any kind of program out here in Queens, say, for instance, to do a direct advertising campaign so that people can
can I ask you a small favor? You have community groups out here and not-for-profits out here. Can you have these not-for-profits send a letter to my office saying that Long Beach or, I don't know, Rockaways, Jamaica needs a not-for-profit now. Main Street in Jamaica needs a cleanup, okay? Then we can pick it up and deal with that. But I need a community group to be able to start the ball rolling, okay?
We'll definitely follow up on that because we work with a couple of not-for-profits. Many of them are right here. And certainly that's something we should definitely follow up on.
And the announcements are coming out of the borough president's office.
Good. So, eventually the mayor has to pay. Well, we give the mayor the money and he pays for it, but the BP would be great. The BP is great to your local elected officials. If they were to write a letter, that would also help. Also, not help. That's in lieu of whatever you need. Okay.
Okay, Councilman Spigner, and then the student. Right
Thank you, Commissioner. First, thank you for coming to South
Thank
East
you.
Queens. Good to see you again.
We hang out in Puerto Rico, by the way.
Just wanted to follow up on how important it is that the job sites be real. Manny Kaufman and I had an occasion to go out to Far Rockaway just to see what was going on, and it was easy to identify the workers from some programs that they were with brooms and shovel pushing on a pile of sand. Unless the work site is real, it creates a kind of cynicism that does more harm than good for the future aspects of a person involved. So it's extremely important, but we have to work with you to ensure that the work sites are real and the jobs are meaningful.
That's the fear of all municipalities, that there's going to be an article written up, and you know there will be, by the way. Forget about whether there's going to be an article. There will be an article saying that you took the money and you gave it to a community group, and all these guys did was sit around and did absolutely nothing. So it's not my fear. It's the fear of the municipalities so that, New York City gave the bulk of their money to the Department of Parks. They felt that the Department of Parks was not even Department of Sanitation. I don't understand that. They gave it to the Department of Parks to do the cleanup. So that's how New York City dealt with the problem. Yes. Yes.
Hi, my name is Khadijah Fitzgerald. I'm a journalism student, and I just wanted to know, you said that the job market is, it changed. It's not the same as it used to be. So
not for us.
Well, what kind of skills would you be looking for when you're hiring, recent college graduates?
Okay, that's a complicated question. When I mention New York State hiring, or when I mention the NEG grant or the Community of Colors, okay, it's a complicated question. You're all in college, so I'm going to focus on colleges, okay? But we're talking about the future. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be looking at New York City's budget and New York State's budget and looking at opportunities that these budgets create for new programs. So if New York City puts out a grant for more schools, that is a tremendous opportunity out there to start preparing some young people to be in charge of those new schools that are being created. And let's assume that these new schools that are going to be built create 1,000 jobs. I think colleges should be aware of that there's 1,000 jobs that are going to be created in New York City in the school system. So they can advertise it to the student body, that New York City in the next 2 or 3 years will be hiring 1,000 students. And what I've noticed always, there was never this connection between what business does, what government does, and what labor does. I think that there's the feeling that in our business model, that a rising tide raises all ships, that if you build schools, you're going to get the student body to fill them. I think it should be done in a little bit more sophisticated. I think you have to link the colleges, the business community, and government together to be able to do that, which is what the governor has said. The governor has developed a program called REDC, the Regional Economic Development Councils. And the purpose of the REDCs is to create new opportunities, and in each REDC, you have the local colleges involved. The state of New York is divided into 10 areas, and each of those 10 areas has an REDC comprised of community participation between the colleges, the business community, and the local governments. And the purpose of it is to identify business models that should be created and that should be pushed. My job is very easy. Once these business models are found, how do we develop the labor force? How to create the sophisticated labor force to deal with these models? I have a meeting in early January with the head of CUNY, the head of CUNY, and the private colleges have a Council of Independent Colleges and Universities. I call them KICU, C-I-C-U. And the head of KICU, and the commissioner of Empire State Development. And the goal is to try and develop a statewide approach to preparing our workforce for the future. So I cannot answer all your questions because that meeting is scheduled for early January. But hopefully, in the very near future, we will have different models that we can look at that everyone who's in college, everyone who's out there, will have a better understanding of what the labor force is going to look like. Labor opportunities are going to look like.
One more question here. The mic is coming your way.
Hi, my name's Teresa. The test you was talking about, the state test and the city test, I talked to a lot of people, and a lot of people don't take the test because of the fee. And is there a way that they could at least waive the fee for college students or modify the fee for college students?
That's not my job. No. That's a good question, by the way. You should ask your legislator here, Vivian Cook. She used to be my legislator also. No, but that's not a DOL issue. We have a civil service commission. Those are rules, and we have a commissioner of civil service, and he handles. That's a separate agency. I will work with them, and what I want to do is I will try to find the money to prepare these young men and women so that when they take that civil service test, they are as prepared as they possibly can be. You know, if you're going to take if you're going to go to law school, you should be prepared to go to law school by taking an LSAT, law school admission test preparation course. If you go to college, there's an SAT preparation course. So wherever you go, there are preparation courses. If you're going to try and get a job with New York State, you should also do the same. But when it comes to fees and all that, because I'm not directly responsible for that, it's a little bit more complicated.
May I take a shot at
Sure.
answering that question? This is what I tell my students. And are you a student here? Yes. You are? Okay, well then I feel as if I can give you this advice. And I know there are fees. And sometimes the fees look like a very steep hill to climb. But think of it, of course, as an investment, right? You're front-loading the investment. And I always say, and I take the prerogative as a woman to say, set aside a couple of months of certain kinds of expenditures that you've used. You know, your spa, or maybe your special food that you like. You know, something special that you like to eat. Set that aside, $5 each month, toward that fee, and make that investment. I'm just, since she's a student, I'm
Yes, you can do that.
Yeah, right, because, you know, this is what we're developing. We're developing your academic skills. We're also wanting to develop your interpersonal and your business and your savvy skills to say, okay, now, how are we going to make this work? And so that's my advice to you. Now, of course, if the commissioner can work with his other commissioner to reduce the fees, to waive the fees, that's a bonus. But in the meantime, there are ways we can do that. One last question, please, from this lady. Was there an overhead? Right. Last question, and then you'll have to just engage the commissioner if he still has time. We want to respect his time.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
And good morning to my fellow attendees. My name is Michelle Chowtine with TIAA Craft, and I want to thank Dr. Keys for inviting me to this very informative breakfast. My question is around the opportunities that you're considering for diverse areas. Can you expand on what sort of jobs are being targeted for the African American and Hispanic communities as you?
It may not be a specific job, but we're doing an effort in Harlem for the community of Harlem. So that you know, it's in its nascent stage. I have asked my staff to develop a council of 3 individuals and to monitor and to follow up and to maintain an effort, a continuing effort, not an effort, but a continuing effort when it comes to unemployment in the African American community and when it comes to unemployment in the Hispanic community. 2 communities that have huge unemployment problems and issues. So I will have a group of advisors, not a big group, 3 individuals. And they're from community organizations that you're familiar with, community organizations that have worked with issues of employment in the African American community, and the same with the Hispanic community. We're working with an effort with the foundations. There is about 12 foundations in the state of New York, like the Ford Foundation and so on, that have employment programs. I'm not crazy about their employment programs because I find that their target is very, very small. So I wonder how they ever develop these foundations to look at some of these issues. So I call for a meeting of all the foundations that do employment in the state of New York to see how we can partner with them. I know that there's a foundation that's doing something. Whenever you talk about the African American community, the perfect place is Harlem. That's the cultural home of the African American, as you well know. I hate to say this to a Queens community group. I know that Vivian is staring at me. But I know that there's several efforts by foundations in Harlem to deal with the issue of the tremendously high unemployment rate of African American youth. And so we're trying to partner with them and trying to expand on what they're doing. And again, I don't want an effort, I want a continuing approach to this problem. Vivian and Leroy will tell you that for years and years and years, when it came to our communities, something would get started and then it died. And then it got started and then it died. I don't want that. I want a continuum for as long as I can maintain that effort. So it's a complicated answer that I try to give you, but it'll be a continuing answer that we can talk about. And if you have some solutions, please talk to me.
We really want to respect the commissioner's time. Do you have one? Is that a journalism student? Is that it?
By the way, my daughter is a journalist major.
Okay, good. One last journalism. Only because his daughter is a journalism major. Let's come around so he can see you, please. Yeah, good. Yeah, great. And this really will be the last. I promise.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
My name is CG. I'm a journalism student here at the school. I actually had 2 questions for you, but I will cut it down to one. What is your advice for people going back to school in the midst of the recession and the rising tuition rates?
The last part I didn't hear.
And the rising tuition rates. For
The rising
school.
tuition rates. You know, there's a lady here that is responsible. No, I wouldn't do that to you, Vivian. When I say rising tuition rates, I can tell you that as a legislator, we dealt with that year after year after year. We fought it let me talk as a bureaucrat for a minute. To maintain this building, to maintain the professors that are here, doesn't happen strictly with state aid anymore. Not only New York State, but most states can't afford to keep the quality of higher education the way it should be. Vivian and I were part of the legislature when the state university system was ignored. About 6 or 7 years ago, there was no new construction in the CUNY system for about 10 years. Am I correct, Vivian? That's correct. Okay, and salaries were stuck for teachers for those 10 years in the SUNY system. And we saw a tremendous decrease in the quality of what students expected in the SUNY system. That has changed. Thank God that has changed. It's something that Vivian and I fought and raised time and time again, but we had no control over, because no matter what we put in there, the governor would veto it and would knock it out. So things have changed, and it's because there has been an infusion of money that we've been able to allocate. If you look at this building here, a lot of it was built with state monies. We may not be able to underwrite your tuition, but we do underwrite a lot of the stuff that you see here. There's somebody here from the YMCA. I gave the YMCA in the Bronx $100,000 about 4 or 5 years ago to build a new building that was built, something I was very proud of. I may not be able to maintain the structure, meaning pay the staff, pay the salaries, and so on, but I can help build the kind of buildings that are required. So it's not the perfect answer, but it's a partnership between what government can do and what you can do.